March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law. GL Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Great Barrington Select Board will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and a requirement to attend the meeting can be found on the town's website. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to listen to the meeting may do so by following the instructions at the top of the agenda. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the town's website an audio, video recording, transcript, other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. Pursuant to Mass General Law 7C 30A, Section 20F, after notifying the chair of the public body, any person may make a video or audio recording of an open session of a meeting of a public body or may transmit the meeting through any medium. At the beginning of the meeting, the chair shall inform other attendees of any such recordings. This meeting is being recorded by the secretary, town secretary, CTSB, Berkshire Edge, and there may be other recordings. Any member of the public wishing to speak at the meeting must receive permission of the chair. The listing of agenda items are those reasonably anticipated by the chair which may be discussed at the meeting. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by law. We start with select board's announcements. Lee?
Nothing for me.
Thank you, Bill.
No, nothing here.
Ed? And nothing for me. Fairgrounds discussion. Mark, Bill?
I think it's something we should investigate, having the town purchase the fairgrounds. Is there something more?
I think go ahead, Lee.
No, I think it's a very interesting idea, and obviously I've always wanted to see the, I shouldn't say obviously, but I have had a desire to see the fairgrounds be used for community development and something that benefits the citizens. So I'd be curious to hear your ideas.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're not getting any tax benefit from it at the moment, so there's that. And I just think it could be a great asset to the town, just a nice park, if nothing else. But I think we could also have any number of events there. We could put in a skating rink for wintertime stuff. We could put in picnic tables, that sort of thing. Just a simple little park, if nothing else, and clean it up and knock down some of those dangerous buildings and make it look presentable for the south end of town.
And I think you have told me there's at least one grant that could be available to help with that.
Yes, there's a Massachusetts Park Grant, which is parkland acquisition and renovations for communities, which this would fall right into, and it's up to $400,000 available to individual communities if you get the grant.
So I think there's two things we should do. I think we should instruct the town manager to open up, negotiations, to start discussions, to see if it's available, to see what the cost would be, et cetera. The other is, I think, out of a formality, we should at least go to the Parks Department, assuming that's who would be the governing body, which I happen to be a member, but that's besides the point. And just, they're going to read about this, but just to let them know, I would wish you would go as a select board representative, since this
Sure.
is your idea. So that at their next meeting, just to give them, your thoughts.
That'd be fine. I think if they're in agreement, we should probably also get the place appraised, because it's been a while and who knows what it's worth.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, obviously it's owned by an entity right now, so I'm just curious if this will be news to them, or do we have any sense that they might be willing to?
I've spoken with the board members, and they seemed open to the idea.
To the town possibly taking it over, or just to sell it in general?
to the town making an offer. I think they were open to the town making an offer. So that's just a start for negotiating. You know, it may not go anywhere, but I think it's worth a shot.
So I guess in terms of steps and money that might go into doing this kind of investigation, once we have a sense that they are very serious, and are we looking to get an appraisal and find a cost, how much that would cost, and what would be the next steps, Mark?
Yeah, we can certainly move in the direction. I'm taking notes as I listen to the conversation here. To open negotiations or discussions with the Fairgrounds Board and approach the Parks Department and also seek an appraisal. But one thing I wanted to mention when it was appropriate is that we're in the process now of, staff is in the process now of moving in the direction of a parking lot proposal. And part of that proposal in our fiscal 22 budget, which you'll be hearing in a few weeks, was to use this sale of real estate account for that purchase. So one thing I wanted to suggest tonight to the board as we discuss the fairgrounds and also parking when it comes up is that maybe we should consider choosing one of these two options rather than pursuing both at the same time, since the funding source would be the sale of real estate for both. And I believe the account balance at this point is just over $675,000 in that account.
Oh, I think it's too soon now to discuss which one, but I think let's, if we have a motion to instruct the town manager and town staff to open discussions with the fairgrounds to see if they are interested in a possible purchase by the town of the site.
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion by Bill, a second by Ed. Other discussion. Extremely preliminary, but it's a start. As Bill pointed out, that land could have a lot of uses. It actually abuts the Little League field that's down there. They connect. Also the trails.
Yeah.
And right now, as part of the gateway to the town, it's nothing to be proud of. So,
Well, the other thing is, if they haven't been able to come to terms with Great Barrington Land Conservancy about an easement for the extension of the river trail.
yes,
And that would be tremendous if the town could get that. It would be connecting the senior living down in the south end of town to downtown to the fairgrounds. It all kind of comes together. A whole path that exists from the senior housing all the way into downtown without going on Route 7 at all.
yes.
So I think there's a
agree.
lot of benefits to it.
Please.
So I guess it's appropriate to ask, just to get clarification, that the Suffolk Downs proposal that was before us approximately a year ago is not happening.
I don't think they're coming back.
We haven't had any discussions, anyone
No,
on the board? Or,
No, I think that's done.
so I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote. Lee,
aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Ed,
Aye.
and I. It's unanimous. Mark, any questions?
No, like I said, I took some notes and I will circle back to the board and we'll probably discuss this again when we hit the parking topic on our priority list. You'll see that Chris Rembold, Chief Berger, and Sean Van Duzen are all here and promoted tonight as panelists. And we thought as we move into our priority list of topics here, we're all prepared to provide updates and answer any questions you have.
So what my thoughts are tonight, we will talk about the high priority projects. That's where we'll spend the majority of our time. If there's anything that the board wants to discuss on the moderate priority projects or low priority, they're all on there. We can discuss those, but at this point, that wasn't going to be the highlight of the meeting. We really want to concentrate on the high priority. If we decide to promote something to high priority, I would ask the board think about what they want to take off the high priority list, because I think it's pretty full. So if we're going to give the staff more high priority items, we need to reduce something else. So let's just concentrate mostly on the items that are in the high priority tonight, red on some of our sheets, and I'll let Mark, you start and go through each one individually.
Sure. I'm going to ask Chris Rembold to start us off with the affordable housing update.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. Well, as you can see on the list, we have accomplished a number of items there. The housing needs study is completed. As you know, we presented that to you a few months ago. The Affordable Housing Trust Fund has been very active, both with moving forward on the development of homeownership units up on North Plain Road. They have selected Habitat as their developer, and we're moving forward with securing Habitat in a development agreement and looking for grants and et cetera to develop that site. The Housing Trust is also funding the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. They have extended the initial contract and are going out seeking another $50,000 contract for rental assistance. So that would put the total emergency rental assistance at $100,000. So, and it's pretty incredible the need that is out there right now, driven by COVID, with the lifting of eviction moratoriums is just getting more and more dire. So those are the immediate needs in rental. And of course, we know the long-term needs also exist in rental housing for a diversity of our population, both in the affordable range and the moderate range of income levels. So this board and your subcommittee with the planning board has been talking about various interventions that the town could take in this area. It might be zoning, it might be tax incentives, special legislation, et cetera. So I'm not sure if there's anything specific you want to add under that list, anything that we should be exploring that you think we're not, but happy to take any questions there. I feel like we're pretty active in this arena.
Board members? No, I think this one is, Chris, is one you've got covered and is going well.
Well, it's good to, it's great to have the Affordable Housing Trust working on this so diligently and to have dedicated funding streams through the CPA allocations to do this. Without those two things, we would not be making much progress on this. So credit to the town and the Affordable Housing Trust.
So noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Should I keep moving down the list?
Yeah, please.
Okay. All right. Ambulance study, service study is up next, and I'll ask Chief Berger to provide the board with an update.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Position my camera there. Okay, so a few things have gone on in the past year with regards to this. The approach that I have primarily taken for now is for us to be able to support Southern Berkshire the best we can in providing a quality EMS service to the town. Our biggest focus over the past year has been working towards getting our expedition licensed as an ambulance, and it would be a Class 5 license, which means that we can carry at the basic level the same equipment, medications, and all of that kind of stuff as an ambulance. Right now, we're on scene first at medical calls 80% of the time in town. So it'll enable us to at least initially be able to provide a slightly higher level of service than we currently do. It also then legally allows us to cross-staff a Southern Berkshire ambulance if needed, in order to transport someone to the hospital. So when they're short-staffed, if they just have one EMT, we'd be able to, with our own license, we're then legally allowed to transport with them. So that would also provide a improved service there. And I'm certainly not working on this. It's not the plan, but if we had to, going from a Class 5 license to a full license is literally no work at all. So if for some reason we had to put an ambulance in, it literally could be done as quick as somebody could drop a leased ambulance off at the station. So I think that puts us in a slightly better position for right now. There's EMS is definitely a very complicated issue here, and there's going to be no very quick short-term solution to everything. I cannot tell you exactly what Southern Berkshire's long-term financial plans are, but for the town right now, I think that our best option is to offer to help them with the resources that we currently have, such as our personnel and stuff like that. I know that Ann Dwyer has worked with their director, Bill Hathaway, extensively over the past year or half year, looking at many of their finances and stuff. So that end of things has been moving forward very slowly, but there is no major movement there right now. So I'd be happy to take any questions or anything, but work is being done, but there's no quick, I can't tell you what the next 5 and 10 years with regards to EMS is going to be here, but I think we're in a slightly better position right now, with a little bit of a safety net, so to speak, than we were before.
Thank you, Charlie. Questions, comments? We've covered 2 in a row.
We were going to, we gave them some money last year. Are they going to be asking for more money ongoing, or do you know that?
I am expecting them to request the same amount this year. I don't expect them to be coming back that we gave them. I don't expect them to be coming back and asking for the 150 or 170,000 that they were requesting last year. But I cannot speak with certainty on that right now.
Mark, you're planning the budget at this point. What are you using for a number?
I believe we have a placeholder right now for the same special article we had last year, but we haven't received an official request from Southern Berkshire Ambulance at this point. I think Sue is on the line and may be able to provide more information. I think it's in the range of 40,000. Hang on one second, that we provided.
I believe it was 42 last year.
Okay.
I promoted to Sue to panelist.
Okay. Sue may be able to provide some more information.
Sue, are you there? You're muted if you are.
I am. Sorry about that. A little
Thank you.
slow in the draw here. Yes, it was 42 last year. I've built in 40 this year. I can up it another 2. That's not going to make or break us at this point. But yes, I have a placeholder of 40,000 this year.
Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, no. Do you want to go first?
Well, I can save this for the budget discussion, but what we were looking for last year is, when they made their initial request, they took their total number of calls, divided it, took our percentage of it and came up with that number. And sort of what we had said is some of our calls reimburse better because they're nursing homes to hospitals. And because the number we have, we could actually, if we had to, not that we want to, could run our own at a break even. And really, it's the smaller towns that have a larger burden. And we were trying to look for what that number is. Are we likely to have that? And is that an understandable question? So I had a lot of trouble explaining it.
Are we likely to, are you asking about the break even, or are you?
In other words, if coming up with a number, we're part of, if with Southern Berkshire, we're part of this group, we were initially asked for a huge chunk because we have most of the calls.
Correct.
Which sort of makes sense. On the other hand, it doesn't make sense because we have most of the calls. Our calls can cover a lot of the fixed costs, which the smaller towns would have the same fixed costs if they were on their own. So really, our per call cost should be smaller than other towns. Do we have any idea what that number is?
That's a very difficult number to calculate because you can look at it 101 different ways. I can work to kind of come up with a number for that for you, but what you stated is very much my opinion that Great Barrington is the town that provides the revenues due to our call volume and healthcare facilities that enable Southern Berkshire to operate. And it is the smaller towns that only generate about 900 911 calls a year that would be their net loss, so to speak. And so that's very much my opinion on it. And I can sort of try to come up with better numbers for you, but there are so many variables that go into it with regards to the exact staffing needed to cover just the town of Great Barrington compared to the additional staffing and resources to cover the other towns. But having that additional staffing also ultimately benefits Great Barrington also. So it's not unfortunately, it's not a totally straightforward answer. But I think that what you said is extremely important to be emphasized with any monetary subsidizing of Southern Berkshire. That the general idea of just splitting their supposed losses amongst the towns based on call volume is an extraordinarily unequitable way of doing it.
Lee?
Yeah, I guess, I'm concerned that this might be kind of a long-term relationship that we're, in a sense, funding an entirely different new department, like an ambulance, to fund this nonprofit. So last year when we had this discussion, I seem to think that this was just kind of a once-off thing to help them get on firmer footing. But at that point, they said they were going to run a capital campaign, which I did receive a nice glossy brochure, which must have cost a pretty penny, which I'd like to see actually the numbers on how much that marketing campaign costs and how much it actually brought in. So I'd like to request that we see those numbers, but I just don't want, I'm concerned that this is going to be a long-term financial arrangement that we're in a sense on the hook. And I will be asking for these numbers that Ann O'Dwyer has been looking into to determine whether we should continue with this.
So I have a couple comments. I actually, Lee, got a different impression. I thought this was going to be a long-term request on their part. I did get the impression that they felt that was an entitlement that the town should provide, and it's an important service. There's no doubt we all agree on that. I also do not want to see what happened last year happen this year, and it's already happening, is that we have to chase them for numbers, for figures. They should have had a nice presentation already given to us if they're going to request money. Our budget's already in the stage of being completed, and we still haven't had any discussion from them with a new request this year. Even if it's for the $40,000, which I'm not against, I'll keep a neutral thoughts about it. Last year, they had said that they lost money. They were going to do a capital campaign. I really think we need to see the books. That needs to be presented to us. We don't need to go chase them down. They need to come to us with a very organized presentation. Last year was their first year asking. I get it that there was some confusion on their part, not on our part. But this year, I don't want to see the same thing happen. I actually wanted to see us, if this is going to be a long-term process, I want to see us have a seat on their board. We're going to give them money every year. We should have a say in how that money's spent. I just think that it's their duty to come to us. They provide a valuable service and do it well, but it's not our duty to chase them, whether by volunteers, whether by the finance committee, whether by town staff. If I go to ask the bank for $40,000, they don't come to me and say, oh, just give us everything and we'll look through your books, and if you miss a few things, we'll come back to you. It doesn't work that way. So I think we have a fiduciary responsibility to have them make a presentation to us and we make a decision. I'm not in the mood to spend the whole budget season chasing things down, numbers down, getting presentations that have 3 different sets of numbers at our meetings. That's just, budget's strenuous enough, so be forewarned. This is not something I'll be happy about.
Yeah, and I will be asking for numbers from their capital campaign, how much they spent and how much they actually received. So
Giving to an organization that does as much as they do, if it's well run and they've done a capital campaign and they're still losing money for a variety of reasons, pandemic, the way medical care and health insurance is, et cetera, is one thing. But giving to an organization because they've lost money, but we really don't have their books or don't have a lot of answers, it's just not the right thing for us to do. We have a responsibility not to do that as the stewards of the town. I'll get off my soapbox now.
I think we're on the soapbox together, so that's okay.
I think we are. That's a good thing. Anyone else on this? Mark, I may suggest that, and this is not contrary to the last 5 minutes I just said, that you reach out to them and say, you're almost done with the budget. We haven't heard from you. If you want to be snarky, you can say, I assume you're not asking for money this year, but you don't have to say that.
Will do. Okay, so moving on, Cook's Garage property, I'm going to ask Chris Rembold again to provide an update to the board.
Sure. Hi, everybody. So Cook's Garage, as you know, is a portion of the old Monument Mills property right by the Park Street Bridge, New Satonic. Sits back there. The town foreclosed on it, and we now own it. For the past 2 years, we've been using some of our brownfields assessment grant to figure out what's going on there. We've done some work on the building itself, testing work on the building materials themselves. We've done some site work, some underground site work, et cetera, to determine presence of any contamination in the soil, et cetera. So we have the phase 1 and phase 2 reports done for that site. At this time, we're moving into the phase with the assessment grant where we'll be beginning a community planning process, just to get a sense of what folks want to see at that site, and maybe what what can actually be done given the presence of contamination and costs to deal with that. So we're entering that phase. We'll be providing some more information soon. The well, as you know, which is, I think it's a 400 gallon a minute well, is shared 50-50 between this site and the abutting site, the source of which is unknown and may be attractive to a future owner or an important component of a future development of that site, of that campus. So that's certainly an important factor there. But we're moving now into that discussion phase, and happy to take any questions or comments.
So Chris, that can't be used as a public water supply, but the new owners could conceivably use it as their own personal water supply?
No, I would never say that it could be a drinking water supply. It may be some sort of a commercial water supply or recreational supply, but certifying it as drinking water, public or otherwise, would likely be problematic.
Anyone else? Move ahead.
So moving on to COVID-19 state of emergency. This remains a high priority, of course, consumes a great deal of our time here at Town Hall and across all departments, as it should. We have a task force comprised of representatives from the hospital, public safety, police, fire, EMS, public health, the school district, and town administration meeting weekly. We continue to meet every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. We have a COVID leave policy in place now for all employees. I shared that earlier today. And we've transitioned to a rotating work schedule here, at least in our administrative offices. Our health department and our council on aging are working hard to help seniors navigate the vaccination process that began earlier today. And we're also providing up-to-date information on a weekly basis or more regularly if needed on the health department page.
Questions?
Not a question, just I've been sitting in on those calls of your task force. Every function and every process of every department had to change and had to change quickly. And I just think you've done a remarkable job, you and all the department heads and all of the staff, sometimes remotely even. So thank you. It really has been remarkable.
The staff has been working together since March really well. We've been working as a team and making as many accommodations as we need to. So, and thank you for the board support. It's been a challenging year, no doubt. Next, any other questions on that particular topic? Okay. Next up is the Housatonic Community Center and updates to that property. So I'll ask Sean Van Dusen to provide an update to the board.
Hey, so we executed the town's contract with DOER, meeting between DOER, our contractor Guardian Energy, and another consultant with the regional planning, which is acting as our sort of engineer oversight for the project. So we're anticipating a kickoff meeting in the next 2 to 3 weeks with hopefully work to start soon thereafter. I'll have some more details after the kickoff meeting.
Don, can you tell us what they're doing?
Mostly it's winterization, I believe, and Mark is familiar with the project too. It's mostly, I think, winterizing the, sort of insulating the roof, which is a massive sieve. So it should reduce the heating cost of that building pretty substantially.
Yeah, weatherization, just like Sean said, insulating that roof, which is anyone who's looked at it can see that it's a sieve. It looks like pine board with some kind of felt paper or something, and that's about it. The other upgrade to that building will be LED lighting throughout. We'll be replacing the early 90s lighting in there with high efficiency LED bulbs.
And as that project finishes up, I assume we'll look for other grants for that building?
Correct.
Yep, another round of green communities money might be available soon, in which case we'll be looking for another project.
Perfect. Lee?
Oh, no, I assume this, when we have the conference room more in a state that's more usable, we'll have more groups looking to use it. So then we'll have, how will that work? We still, everything will always be free and it'll just be to Great Barrington residents. And I mean, will anything change once it's properly winterized and people can start really using it to its full impact?
If you recall, in last year's budget, we included some funding for replacing the select board meeting table and furniture, which I believe is also from the early 90s. And our thought was that we would relocate that furniture to the Housatonic Community Center so that it could be reused in that space and become an active meeting space for the Village of Housatonic.
The advantage we have right now is we can work on that building fairly easily because it's, the Parks Department is not allowing the use of it because of the pandemic. So the more we can get done, the better. Anyone else?
Just one last comment. The grant that we received for improvements on that project was a competitive grant, like Sean said, through DOER. And we're eligible to apply for those competitive grant cycles every year. So we'll continue to seek funding for further improvements.
Good.
Housatonic Fiber. Again, I'll ask Chris Rembold to take the lead on this one.
Sure. Well, as it says there in the comments updates column, we've moved that project along. We have a contractor who will be working with National Grid to determine the costs of using the poles on Park Street to run fiber optic cable up to the village. So getting the results of that study will be a very important moment for determining the feasibility of moving forward with running fiber to Housatonic, whether we do it as a public project, a private project, or a public-private partnership. So it's a very important step, and I'm going to say maybe 2 months the most for those results.
Questions, comments? Thanks, Chris. That's really important to Housatonic. Let's hope that we can find a way to do that.
Next on the list is an HR director, and in parentheses, I have a shared position. I did delete Berkshire Hills Regional School District from that because in my conversations with Peter Dillon, the superintendent there, it doesn't sound like Berkshire Hills is interested in partnering with the town at this time, at least, and sharing an HR director. So what I did was I have reached out to our neighboring communities, and I've been meeting with some of our neighboring towns in recent weeks to discuss what a shared approach might look like to HR among municipalities. At this time, Sheffield, Monterey, New Marlboro, and West Stockbridge have all expressed an interest in sharing HR, or have at least recognized a need for it. So while we continue to meet and discuss what the best approach is, either a consultant who has a municipal background experience or has some municipal background experience, or an employee that one town could take the lead on and share with other communities. We have a placeholder in the budget this year for $20,000 in the town manager's budget for discussion in a few weeks. I'll plan to have something more solid in place, I hope, by budget season, but I wanted to make sure that as we start to discuss our priorities for fiscal 22, that's something that we consider. We certainly have a need with almost 100 employees in town to have some HR professional guiding us.
Questions, comments? Thank you, Mark, on that one.
Sure. infrastructure, again, I'll ask Sean Van Dusen to provide some general updates on bridges, roads, sidewalks, and complete streets.
So I'll give you guys just a brief update on the projects that are out to bid or under construction right now, and then you can obviously ask me anything else you want. I'll remind you that I did give a more extensive update like maybe 2 months ago or a month and a half ago. I can't quite remember, but some stuff that are up to bid right now. The town hall steps are up to bid. Obviously, that's been a long time coming for the second bidding of the project, and hopefully we'll get it done before town hall reopens fully. That would be nice. So that's up to bid, and we hope to get a decent price given the current bidding environment. The Taconic wall, retaining wall, Taconic retaining wall is up to bid, and the bid opening for that would be the next 2 weeks. The Housatonic Fire Station roof is going up to bid next week. That's a project we received funding for, I think, 2 years ago, and it's finally out to bid. The police station roof and window replacement project is approaching replacement. It's a project that's a long time coming, and the new windows will hopefully add some energy efficiency to the police department. Engineering continues on the Division Street Bridge. There's a meeting set up with Time Bond and MassDOT for the week after next, I believe. And the Christian Hill culvert design continues with a hopeful start date for that project in this summer. I'm hoping to get the reconstruction of the parking lot behind the triplex out soon. I'm delinquent on that, and hopefully get that moving the next week or so. I think that's sort of a rough breakdown of some of the stuff. There's a bunch of other projects that are out that probably escaping me at the moment, but so that's kind of a rough breakdown. I think that later on in this meeting, or maybe now, I think Chris wants to have a brief discussion about the campus at Town Hall. I don't know if that's appropriate now, or are you ready for that, Chris? But I figured I'd bring it up.
Let's ask questions on this, and we'll have Chris. 2 questions. The remainder of Bridge Street and Bentley Avenue, is that still to be done?
Yes.
Will that be this summer?
So that's the project that I'm late on. Hopefully we'll get this spring, summer, yes.
Okay, so that was part of the triplex parking lot.
Yes, yep, same project.
And Mark, this is more geared towards you or Sue. I thought I read the governor sign the transportation bill. Do you know if he did, and if Division Street was included in it?
I don't know the answer to that, but we can find out for you.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Anyone else? Lee.
Sorry if I spaced out, but did you mention the half a red bridge, the brown bridge? Because I know it's halfway painted and there's trucks still on there. If you could just give us an update on that.
So that's not my project. That's MassDOT's project, but their timeline for completion was, I believe, this summer.
That's correct.
Okay, I guess it's just a question to see if what's happening with the painting, if we're going with that color, but I guess that's another time, another place.
I was invited to attend the next design advisory committee in February to have a discussion on the color of the bridge. I couldn't tell you right now what that discussion will be about. I think there was some confusion about whether that was the color that the DAC had originally recommended to the select board, but in our research we have found that it is in fact the color of the chip that was presented to the select board and approved by the select board. So I can report back after that meeting.
That'd be great. Sean, is the ballparks under your purview? Because I know that the development next door was going to be paying for the work to the ball fields. Is it Memorial Field?
Yes.
Is that going to be done in time for spring, or have we talked to?
I'll refer that to Mark.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was
I'll refer that to Mark.
Memorial Field and
Memorial Field. I was just wondering if that's going to be ready for
Square
spring.
was supposed to pay for it, Lee asked, and where are we with that?
This is, I'm sorry, is this in reference to the benchmark agreement?
Yes. Yeah, are you going to go ahead and go with, go forward with the work and then just build them, or how is that?
I can't answer that question right now, but I'd be happy to circle back and provide an answer to that at a later date. It's potentially litigation. I don't want to say too much in public session.
Any other questions before we go to Chris? Chris, you were going to talk about the campus?
Oh, yeah, sure. Well, this is, I think Sean is making a larger connection here, you know, talking about the parking lots generally downtown, the Taconic lot. We had been planning for electric vehicle charging stations, and just parking supply in general, which I think is another item here. And we've been working also with the Historic District Commission on updating the Town Hall campus to more prominently and perhaps properly display the war memorial monuments that are on the campus. So I think this is a larger discussion at another time that we have. We look at improving the safety of the intersection with Main Street and Castle Street, removing the driveway up to the front of Town Hall from Castle Street, making the front of Town Hall more accessible, and generally improving the surface of the parking lot all around Town Hall for safety and accessibility reasons. So we've had preliminary discussions there, and I think we would like to bring it back to the board when we have a little bit more information. But there's a significant, public safety, accessibility benefits that we could realize, and working with the HCC and the veterans groups, we could do some really important work there to honor their efforts, and really make the campus kind of a green for the whole town. So that's what we're thinking of at this early stage.
Whenever you're ready to come back to the select board with that, we will put you on the agenda.
That's great.
Thank you, Chris. Moving ahead to parking concerns.
Okay, so I can address this one. So after our last goal setting meeting, staff researched some parking options for the town, and our plan was to present a proposal to the boards, the finance committee and the select board in this upcoming fiscal 22 budget season, which will be starting in a few weeks now, for an in-town parking lot to purchase and develop a lot for long-term parking downtown. This would be for our thought at this point, and again, this is very early on in discussions, but our thought was that we would purchase a lot to develop into a parking lot for downtown residents, for merchants, for employees, so that some of those prime in-town spaces could remain free and available for customers and visitors. The plan was to partially fund this, what we expect to be roughly a $1.2 million project, $850,000 to purchase the parcel, and about $350,000 or so to develop the parcel. So partially fund it with a portion of the sale of real estate fund, which again is in the $675,000 range. So my recommendation after our discussion earlier about the fairgrounds would be that we decide to maybe choose one or the other, and staff does not have any preference. We're really just looking for guidance so we know where to focus our time and attention going forward. And the only reason I would suggest one or the other is because we have some other long-term capital needs that we'll be discussing soon, or relatively soon. Housatonic School, Ramsdale Library, again, the town hall property here, and potentially another discussion about renovations at the high school. So with that in mind, I would suggest that maybe we again consider one or the other as we approach fiscal 22.
But we're not going to make that decision this evening.
you don't need to make that decision tonight. We'll proceed with presenting a proposal on the parking lot during the upcoming budget. And of course, I have a task list here to move on for the fairgrounds as well. So we'll bring back information on both.
Lee?
So obviously during that presentation, you'll talk about the question of the tax burden on residents if we were to go with either proposal, whether it's the fairgrounds or the parking lot, I assume. Okay.
The tax burden comes after the purchase because we do have that money that's set aside from the sale of Searles. But, you know, nothing is free, and you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
I guess the long-term, yeah.
Long-term maintenance. And, you know, with the fairgrounds, it's possible to use CPA funds for maintenance because it's open space. So those are all things we would have to look at.
And you'll see the parking lot proposal in the budget as a special article. So you'll see, you know, the impact on the tax rate as well as part of the larger budget plan for the coming year.
Anyone else on that?
And Mark, I think you mentioned the number of spaces that we hope to get from this parking lot, or did you not?
Yeah, if Sean's on the line, correct me if I'm wrong, please, but I think we were looking at roughly 60 parking stalls in this location. Is that correct? Or Chris?
This is Chris. Yeah, Mark, that's about right.
Seems close, as I recall.
And again, this is very early on in the planning process, so ballpark numbers and ballpark number of stalls.
Great. Looking
Great,
forward to
thank
the
you.
presentation. Thank you.
Yes.
Moving on.
Yes, please.
All right, personnel policy. The draft of this policy, or our personnel policy, a comprehensive set of policies, was presented to the select board on Monday night. And this has been an 18-month process developing this comprehensive set of policies that meet state and federal laws and also take into consideration our 3 union agreements, our collective bargaining agreements. So I'll work with our labor attorney. I have another follow-up meeting scheduled with her for Monday morning. And Sue Carmel and Karen Fink will hopefully be able to join me at that meeting. We've been working on this for a long time, and we'll plan to incorporate the edits from Monday night and also the edits that Kate Burke sent along Tuesday morning, and circle back with another version, hopefully by your February 8th meeting, because I'm hopeful that we're close and we can implement a new policy very soon.
Questions? Pretty straightforward. Reed's Cleaners property.
Again, I'll ask Chris Remble to provide an update to the board.
Sure. Where we are with Reed's is, again, this is another contaminated site, as you all know, that we foreclosed on and own. We did receive from EPA a $500,000 cleanup grant for Reed's. And EPA also stepped in separately through a slightly separate arm to complete the removal of all of the contaminated soil in the back part of the site behind the existing building where the old dry cleaner tanks were buried. So that soil that's contaminated would be removed by EPA's disposal unit, which is a extraordinarily significant savings to the town, and therefore something that the town would not have to spend our cleanup grant on. We could focus on residual contamination, perhaps the building itself. Along with that cleanup grant, we do have to participate somehow in-kind services or matching, I think 10 or 20% of that $500,000 with town funds. So you'll see that built into our budget this year as we come forward in the next month. depending on how much the EPA disposal unit can do for us, we may need to go out and seek other grants through mass development, et cetera, if we need to boost our $500,000 grant. So really, this depends on what EPA's disposal unit can do for us. They had hoped to do the work during December, couldn't mobilize that quickly due to some, again, COVID concerns, but they are looking to go out there in the spring and mobilize and get the soil removal done. And after that, we'll know a lot more about how much more needs to be done and how much more grant money we may need to finally achieve a clean site. And yeah, happy to take any questions. And we could talk about future uses. It would probably be more productive to talk about future uses when we know more about the costs to deliver a site to the community, to a developer, to however we decide to move forward.
Any questions of Chris on that? Lee, go ahead.
Just in general, timeline, Chris, to the best of your ability in terms of estimating, I'm just wondering how many years are we away from having a clean site and having it demolished, just assuming that we get the funding that we seek along the way? Are we talking 1 year, 2 years, 3 years?
I would say 2 to 3. You mentioned demolition. I don't think demolition's been decided, so I'm not, going to refer to that's something to be discussed. I suppose. Really, it depends on the results of the disposal of the soil, and to what extent we need to address contamination in bedrock, which is something that is difficult to solve totally, and is a long-term ongoing issue. So depending on what needs to be done, could be long, but I'm hoping that 2 to 3 years, 3 years at the max.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Mark, continue.
Sure. Systemic racism proclamation. I'll take this one. So as you know, the select board adopted a proclamation to address systemic racism in our community on July 13th of this past year. At our meeting of February 8th, and this was something we had hoped to cover at the January 25th meeting, but weren't able to get it on the agenda in time. I intend to present the board with an executive summary and a charter that will recommend the creation of a committee to address violations of our 2017 trust policy, which is also referenced in the July 13th proclamation. I may also recommend a committee or an expanded charter to serve as a working group, an additional committee to serve as a working group to review police practices and policies in Great Barrington. And I plan to be continuing to meet with Kate. I think our next meeting is tomorrow morning to discuss how we want to approach this and have this ready for your February 8th agenda and packet.
Questions, comments? Trip hazards, Main Street. That sounds like a Sean issue.
That's a Sean issue.
So I'll just follow up with the information I gave you last fall. We're hoping to start addressing the trip hazards, hopefully this summer, especially some of the low-hanging fruit that won't take a great deal of work to go out to bid. But the major trip hazard, which is the one in front of Wheeler and Taylor, is my suspicion it'll probably be the fall before we're able to get to that.
That was simple. Questions?
So I don't mean to keep asking questions. Sandra, did any new trip hazards come up since last time we spoke? Because I know we put a kind of a shout out to people to contact you if they knew of hazards that you hadn't had on your list.
So nothing new other than what was identified, post Main Street
Great.
construction come up.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? water system study.
Okay, so I'm going to ask Sean to help me with this one, but this is very much an ongoing project, as you know, and I'll continue to provide updates to the select board at every meeting, which is something we committed to several months ago. But in summary, we hired 2 engineering firms, and I know the board is aware of this, but for anyone listening, we did hire 2 engineering firms, DPC and AECOM, earlier this year, or sorry, late last year, I guess now, to complete the phase 2 study and appraisal of the Houstonic Waterworks system. Both firms were on site last week for site inspections and to collect maps and data as part of their study. So I expect we'll be seeing formal presentations by both engineering firms this spring at a regular select board meeting. Anything else you want to add to that, Sean?
No, I think that's pretty accurate. There might be a few things that pop up along the way, like if we have to do some significant dynamic modeling or something else that is unforeseen, but I think the timeline is pretty solid that we should be wrapping up by spring.
I don't see any questions on that. I have a couple things. We're not adding tonight, so don't, there's 2 things that I think we should talk about at some point. Maybe our next goal setting meeting, maybe budget time. One is job creation, how we can, as a board, can set a goal of job creation. And by that, I mean jobs that pay enough that people can actually live in Great Barrington. We've worked on one end of it, which is the affordable housing, but I think the other side of that is, and I don't have a lot of suggestions or expertise, but I'm sure people do, at some point we need to tackle that, and it may be a 10-year process, and some of us, like myself, won't be here then, but I think if we never tackle it, it won't get done, I'll assure you. So that's just something that's been on my mind that we need to at least look at, whether it's, staff, increased staff, whether it's a committee, but somehow I think, it's been on people's minds for years, but we haven't been able to tackle it, and through no fault of anyone's. The other is, at some point when we're actually redesigning this list, with the Reed's Cleaners property, we might change that to Brownfields Cleanup, because we also have the Hong Kong Buffet, Carpenter's Deli property, which is, Chris is being actively worked on. It's farther behind than Reed's, but
Right.
Chris, you want to just mention that, not to put you on the spot?
Oh, well, no, the categorization makes sense because you could put cooks in there as well. But
Yeah.
The site across from Town Hall, right by BCC, the old Carpenter's Variety Deli, Hong Kong Buffet, whatever term you want to use. Yeah, there's petroleum contamination there still. It's not owned by the town; it's owned privately, but we've been able to advance some brownfield assessment work there. So that may be something also that we deal with through a cleanup grant, and it's a very prominent site on Main Street. A lot of economic development potential there.
Exactly. Ed, you look ready to speak.
Just that I want to sort of add to what you say, not to take away from what you're talking about job creation, but there are things we are doing, like expanding fiber up to Housatonic and things like that. So it's not like, I get what you're saying and I agree with you. It just needs to be a focus. We're doing little things along the way already, which is good.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
Taking a bow for the town, right?
Yes, yeah, and I'm not, be clear, I'm not criticizing, I just
Right.
think it's, and I don't have the answers. I have the questions. I have the answers. For the board, there's a whole list of moderate priority projects which we're not going to speak about tonight. If there's any on there that you would like to talk about tonight or talk about at a future meeting, we can. But I think we've tackled, and it's not fairly impressive. It's impressive how far along we've gotten on the high priority projects. We're actually moving along. And if you look at the list, which is in our packet, and to the board and to the public at large, at the bottom in green, or if you print in black and white, the bottom that says completed projects, there's a good many projects that we've completed already, we as in town staff, but we take credit for it. So, you know, I think these goal-setting meetings have been very productive and really helps to organize the thoughts of where we're going. It's not a strategic plan, but surely is really helpful in where the select board thinks the efforts of the town staff should be.
Yeah, I'd like to echo what Steve said. Thank you so much, Mark, and the town staff. It's been a pleasure to look at this from a strategic bird's eye view, and it really helps us focus on the goals. So thank you.
Anyone else? Citizen speak time. If you're on a phone, you hit *9 to raise your hand, and if you're when I call on you, hit *6 to unmute. Otherwise, just raise your hand through the Zoom process if you're on a computer. And there were tonight 29 people at the highest, 9 panelists, and 20 attendees. And I'll start with Dan Bailey. Dan, go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I wish I had more than 3 minutes. I think my heart rate is still just coming down from that conversation at the beginning of this meeting. I'm just curious if one of you was in Maryland and bought a winning lottery ticket. It seems like you guys, what I've been hearing is you're willing to spend a lot of the town's money. And I'm just curious if you guys have more friends who have piece of crap land that you're willing to buy. Because if you're interested, I'll sell you mine. Because I'll tell you what that the town can pay for it. It's disheartening that you just look at this kind of. I know you're going to look at it and get some facts and figures, but you're almost looking at it nonchalantly, saying, yeah, let's just buy the fairgrounds. Let's just buy the fairgrounds. It's great. We can make a park. It'll be great. Everybody be happy. That end of town needs to be spruced up. Have you ever driven down 183 coming into Housatonic? By the way, Housatonic's part of Great Barrington. Not sure if you guys know that.
Dan, before we get any more sarcasm from you, and we're friends, I will tell you right now, a lot of our projects are in Housatonic.
Yeah, Steve.
And things have, Dan, let me finish.
Yeah.
Things have to happen, and I'm not counting your time on this. Things have to happen in open session to discuss. The fairgrounds, it's the first time we discuss it. It may be the next meeting we say, no, it's just not going to work out. But we have to at least look at things and see if there are any possibilities of doing it. We're not saying we're doing it. And if that's any headlines that anyone takes out of it, they need to re-listen to the meeting. Go ahead, Dan.
Unfortunately, that's what you will hear. But the point is if you're really trying to do something that's good for all of Great Barrington, you can't just look at one little section. A year ago, we spent $3,000 of taxpayer money to tell Suffolk Downs to go away because we don't want their revenue. And in the strategic planning, you talk about job creations, but yet in the same breath, you talk about spending more money for things that aren't necessarily going to create jobs or anything. So I'm just curious if there really is some real reason why we'd even consider something like the fairgrounds, especially like when what Mark's saying is, hey, listen, we're also looking at the potential of buying property for a parking garage or parking lot, which actually makes sense because that's economic development. I mean, I know this is the very beginning, but it seems like a no-brainer that what you would pick. I'm just really frustrated that these conversations continue to go on and on and on about, let's spruce up this little area here. We'll forget about the rest of this area over here and not really talk about what's really wrong with Great Barrington, because there's a lot wrong with Great Barrington. Honestly, it's just frustrating. So I just hope that if you guys are going to continue discussing the fairgrounds, you actually do it in a sense that it's going to look at it in a sense that whether or not it's actually going to be good for the whole community. That goes from the Sheffield town line to the West Stockbridge town line. The whole community.
We always do that. Yes.
And also this, CPA money is not free. Okay? You mentioned it as a good way to potentially use it for upkeep for something like that. That's taxpayer dollars. It's an increase to your taxes. That's not economic development. Okay? Anyway, I'll continue my frustration and I'll continue to voice my frustration until I start to see this town try to do something that's good for everybody. Because it seems like we're doing something for our friends or just a particular part of town. It seems like we forget about the whole community. So, you may think different, but that's not the way I see it. That's not the way a lot of people see it.
We
So,
all have a right to our opinions, and
Yep.
I respect yours.
Okay.
Michael Kernan. Just unmute yourself. Go ahead. Michael, you appear to be unmuted. You're now muted. You're unmuted. Try to talk. Anyone else? And I'll go back to Michael. He's having some technical difficulties. Nan Weil.
Okay, now I've unmuted.
You are.
Thanks very much, Steve, and thanks all of you. I want to say, first of all, I actually really like a lot of what you do. And thank you for your service, so to speak, without being cloying. One of the things that came to mind, I'm going to try and make this short because I'm full of stuff, is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. I think that's absolutely great. You've been doing great work. In terms of rental assistance, I know I've been advocating for a friend who's needed rental assistance since COVID started. And she was only allocated 2 months because that was the maximum. However, we're approaching a year. And I'm wondering whether or not the funds that have recently been allocated are going to be for more than a 2-month maximum. And put that out to you to answer at some point, but I think it's a real concern.
Thank you, Dan.
The next thing is the Reed Cleaners property. I have to say, and I'm going to try and keep this unemotional and short, is that I continue to be really surprised that the town is happy to deal with the removal or containment of contaminated earth, but not remediation. I know remediation is really expensive, but it does exist. And I don't know what is too expensive in terms of having healthy property that our kids play on and we walk on and we develop our town upon. I think we need to relook at the way we approach these brownfields. And I know, Ed, you've said this to me before, that the EPA approved the 100 Bridge Street project. I'd like to remind you that some environmental and health agencies in the government also approved tobacco. And I think that we are, it's intelligent to look at and investigate and to question some of the judgments that come down with authority, and to think about what is really good for our neighbors and our neighborhood, our community, and our children. And that's it. Under 3 minutes?
2 minutes and 20 seconds, Dan.
Cool. Well, I'm still signing off.
But yeah, but don't hang up, because I may ask for the answer about the, as a matter of fact, I will ask Bill or Mark if they know the answer to the rent, the 2-month limit. Is that changed, and does that recycle in a new year?
You know, I wasn't aware that there was a limit on that. I know Construct is handling that. They were all set up to provide rental assistance, so we have just been funding it. I'd have to check with Jane, somebody at Construct, to see what the deal is with the 2-month limit.
Dan,
There's a
someone,
lovely, there's a lovely gal at Construct, her name is Courtney, who deals with, helping people out who are, have rental insecurity or whatever the proper term is. And there is, a 2-month maximum. I don't know a limit, and I don't know how that's set, but that is in fact the case. And I think that it's insufficient for a lot of us people, certainly the people that I'm advocating for, and have been working for, need to have help with more than just 2 months. It's now 9 months going on and many more months to go. So thanks, Bill. I'd love to hear what happens when you look into it.
Okay.
thanks, Dan. Lee, did you want to say something?
I could probably answer it with my Construct hat on it. Nan, I'm the development director over at Construct.
I know,
And
but
if you contact Construct, we have been having discussions about this very subject. So I think that if you contact us again, we will have more answers for you.
thank you, I appreciate that a lot.
Thanks, Dan. Michael Kernan, were you able to unmute yourself? Apparently not, so I'll move ahead. Hopefully he does. Larissa Yapel, go right ahead.
Hey, can you guys hear me?
We can.
Cool. Larissa Yapel, 15 Castle Hill Avenue. Quickly, Steve, to your point about job training, a huge part of that, in my opinion, is vocational job training. So maybe that's something I should reach out to you about in your capacity on the school board.
I would love to talk to you about it.
Great, okay. And quickly, I don't know if Chris is still on the call, but I just wanted to thank him for shoveling the sidewalks on Castle Hill today.
Thank you, Chris.
And I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. Always a pleasure. Michael, I'll give you one more shot at this. I feel bad. You're muted right now. Try to unmute yourself. We will move ahead. Select board time. Lee,
Nothing.
Bill,
No, nothing.
Ed.
Just a quick process. We present ideas, we explore ideas. We don't spend money. Town meeting does. So it has to, anything that costs money has to appeal to a majority of voters at town meeting, and can't be, or if there are special interests for just a few, probably wouldn't pass. So any money spent on parks or parking or anything else like that goes through town meeting.
Thank you, Ed. Any media time? Seeing none, we are adjourned by unanimous consent. Thank you, everyone. Really good meeting.
Thank you.